Let's go ahead and call this meeting of the Isanti City Council to order. If we can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, doing roll call, we have all council members present except for Councilman Dan Collison will be absent this evening. Do we have any public comment tonight? Hearing none, I will look for a motion to adopt the agenda. I did want to add, I know we had someone interested in doing some discussion about something at the amphitheater, was the Troy Castellano. So
I don't see anybody in the.
No, she said she might, she was going to try to make it before the end of the meeting, so I was wondering if we can add that as, what would it be, K-13? Any other modifications at all?
Motion to approve the agenda with the addition of K-13.
Second.
I have a motion to adopt the agenda with the changes mentioned from Councilman Merrill and a second from Councilman Heeman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Let's see, then we've got proclamation here for International Overdose Awareness Day, and I'll go ahead and read that proclamation here now. So I did make one change to this. I don't know if anybody's concerned as far as the record goes, but I did pull one line out of this proclamation that had been published previously. So whereas International Overdose Awareness Day is recognized globally on August 31st to raise awareness about the risks of overdosing, honor the individuals whose lives have been lost from overdosing, and acknowledge the grief felt by families, friends, and other communities. And whereas every human deserves our best efforts to prevent injury and death from overdose, and it is imperative to support overdose prevention policies and projects, and to help the wider community understand that drug overdose is a social issue which impacts the victim, families, friends, and communities. And whereas those will be remembered with purple ribbons in downtown Isanti in the month of August, and now therefore I, James Gordon, Mayor of the City of Isanti, do hereby proclaim August 31st, 2023 as Overdose Awareness Day in the City of Isanti, and I call this observance to the attention of all of our citizens. All right, moving on to approving the City Council meeting minutes. We have July 18th Committee of the Whole, July 18th City Council, and July 18th City Council budget work sessions.
Motion approved. Second.
I have a motion to approve from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Heeman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. For announcements, we've got all these meetings coming up on Tuesday, August 15th. The first one starts at 5 p.m., and it's the Committee of the Whole. Then we've got Planning Commission at 6, City Council at 7, and the budget work session immediately following the City Council meeting. Do we have any council committee reports?
Oh, I'd bring up, last fire district meeting, we've been discussing this call changes that they've made. It's huge for the city.
Yeah.
It's huge amount of runs in which we pay for the run counts. And that is would dramatically change the city portions of that. It's been a success. I mean, they've always been, if there's a call where they weren't sent out originally, if they had to go, they could run and go and get on it, and, you know, so it's not really delayed or hurt anything. I think it's a big item. It's great.
Yeah, I think it's huge. Yeah, I mean, I think it's from as a firefighter. I mean, the perspective that I have on it is a little different, I'm sure, than what yours
Well,
is.
even just
But I
wearing
think,
you out.
yeah, right. I mean, I think it's been a benefit overall for sure.
And
I mean,
I can't remember the exact numbers, but it is like over 40% less run counts.
yeah, yeah, it's been huge. So, yeah, that should hopefully help our budget a little bit too, so. Any other council committee reports? All right, then we'll move on to business item K1, the cannabinoid registration.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we do have an application that's been submitted for Isani Smoke Shop Plus for a registration for cannabinoids. They have submitted all the appropriate information and have passed the background, and staff is recommending that we approve this, and they are here this evening, I believe. Thank you.
Okay. All right, any questions or comments on, or discussion on this item? Any motion for approval? Or, well, no question?
Motion to approve.
Okay, all right. I have a motion to approve from Councilman Heeman. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilman Merrill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, you bet. Moving on to K2, resolution to consider approving a special event permit for Rum River BMX.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we have a resolution to approve for a special event for the Rum River BMX. I had it up.
Jay, you want to come up and tell us
Yeah,
about what you got
Jay
going on
is
there?
here
or-
to do it. It is a 4-day event at the indoor arena, held from August 24th to August 27th. An estimated 1,500 to 2,000 people will be in attendance.
So this is, Jay Boson, Rum River BMX, 101 Isani Parkway. This is our state series finals. It's our big race for the end of the state series that runs all summer long with all 10 tracks in Minnesota participating. The finals gets awarded to the #1 track in the state, which happens to be us.
Awesome.
Pretty much on an annual basis. I don't remember the last time we didn't host it. So we expect a big turnout and a lot of people coming into town for it.
Excellent. That's exciting stuff. Any questions at all for Jay?
Has there been any issues in the past with parking or any sort of complaints that,
So we have gotten complaints with people parking at the dog park, and we have made signs that say no BMX parking that we put out there. I've had conversations with Travis about the concerns in the past, and, we announce it over our loudspeaker system that nobody can park at the dog park. We do our best to prevent it from happening, but it does still happen, and I've turned it over to Travis at that point to handle it however he sees fit.
Sure. Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion to approve the special event permit from Councilman Merrill and a second from Councilman Heeman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Thanks, Jay. Moving on to K3, the resolution to consider approving a special event permit for Happy Productions.
Good evening again. We did receive an application for a special event permit to use the Isani Band Shell for a free community concert Saturday, August 19th, prior to Hairball during the day from noon to 5 p.m. From Happy Productions, Sean Sullivan couldn't be here because right now is when he does his radio show weekly, so he did apologize for that. And he said he is aware of the possible conflict with the later event, but he did have an unfortunate double-booked event venue that he was having it at, so he thought it'd be a great opportunity for him to finally get to use our amphitheater, which he and I have been, and Jordan have been talking about, trying to figure out a way to partner soon anyway, but we just knew we didn't have the resources this year to do that, and so this kind of gives us a first look at what those opportunities can be. And yeah, so that is really how it came so last minute, but he's asking for not to have to pay any fees for this event since it is a free community event.
So I met Sean at a Chamber of Commerce event and told him about the amphitheater, and he is so jacked about using that. I think it's great that he's wanting to do something there, and the fact that it's free is even better. So I would approve it just based on knowing how he is as a businessman. I think he'll take care of the venue, so.
Okay.
I think it's just, you know, we want to get that thing used.
Yep.
And it's a good way to start showing a good use to it. So I'd second that motion.
Okay. Did you make a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I think that style of music, I really like that too. I wish I could go see it, but I'm sure I'll be working on hairball stuff, but kind of that Americana style stuff, but. Okay, well, I've got a motion from Councilman Merrill and a second one from Councilman Lundin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. K4, resolution to consider accepting bid for the Isanti Indoor Arena re-roof project.
Mayor and council, so I guess on this one, third time is a charm. First time around, we didn't get any bids. Second time, we got one. This time, we got a whole bunch of good bids. One of the bids is Eber Construction came in. They offered to do it for the lower price for the remove and replace, and they also offered to do it for the low price on the overlay. League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust and Wold Engineering and staff all agree the overlay option is the good choice. It's a good price. It'll make sure that the BMX Association isn't inconvenienced. The roof will not be open at any point, and we will pick up a little bit of our value on that, so that'll be great.
So is that overlay, is that with new stringers, so it's spaced up from the existing roof, I assume?
Yeah, you pick up, I forget, it's 1.5 inches or 2 inches of
Okay.
It's a rigid foam
Okay,
that would be in between. And there's a set fastener system. It was a system designed by the company that originally designed the roof.
okay.
So
So 2 inch will give you about R10 of a rigid foam, so that'll
And
help a lot.
I'll take any of it, and
Yep.
it'll go right over the skylights, so it should mitigate any leaking or condensation on that as well. So hopefully BMX not only will be in there the entire time, but hopefully all the tarps will be able to come down on when it's complete as well. So that would be fantastic for everybody.
So I know this has been something we've talked about, but I know 2 roofers specifically that wanted to put bids on this, but they were tired of all the hoops to jump through and the 150 pages of documents to read, as well as paying a lawyer to look through the documents before submitting a bid. Is there anything we can do to simplify this process for the bidding? Because if we're not getting competitive bids, like even some of the bids on this go-around were still double the price, and that trickles down to the citizens in this community. If we're not getting competitive bids, is there anything we can do to make it a little less complicated and less, formal? I think the government has a great way of making things complicated, but it costs everybody more money. Is there anything that we can do? I know this time it worked better, but.
Yeah, for this type of project, once we hit that threshold of engineer's estimate, 175,000, you're obligated to state statute, and you've got to cover those bid bonds, performance bonds, all those kinds of things. And I did field a few calls where people wanted to know why we were asking for a bid bond, and it's straightforward. Is you ask for a bid bond on those types of things so that somebody, when they do bid a low bid, they are actually compelled to sign a contract with you.
Sure. I don't think the bid bond is a bad idea. It's just the 150 pages of material that you have to pay an attorney to look through before you even put in a bid. I mean, if that was my business, I wouldn't want to do it either. And it's, I think we got lucky in getting a competitive bid this time, but there's been many other projects where I've seen this over the years that it's just costing the residents more money. And there's got to be a way around it. I don't know if there's a way we can simplify it, or if there has to be a way, because I bet you every city isn't doing it this way. So I would like to look into that if we can, because it's costing everybody more and more money every time.
Yeah, I'm not aware. As far as I know, the documents are going to be standard across any engineering firm for any bid process. Most of the contractors I talked to took it as second nature. They were like, yep, we see these documents every single time. A lot of it is the same boilerplate liability stuff as every other project that they're going to bid. So the larger firms like Eber Construction, they see those exact same forms with the exact same boilerplate on every project. They know it front and back, and they for example, Eber Construction, they bat an eye. So a lot of it comes down to how big are you, how big is the project for you, and how much experience do you have. If you're an experienced company and you've been looking at this stuff for decades, You know, it doesn't necessarily phase you at all, and you know what it already says before you read it.
Okay. I just heard that from two companies specifically, so I thought I'd bring it up. Because I think it does affect what we get in for bids. I mean, if you look at the first time we went around 0 bids in, the second time 1 bid in. This time, the other bids weren't even really, there was 2 competitive ones, the others were astronomical, so it's,
Yeah, some of it was, on the first 2 go-rounds, it was simply, I think, how the bid process
Logistics.
was being done. And once I took it over,
Okay.
it went considerably better. You know, it is what it is in that regard. I mean, if you want your bid process to go well, you do actually have to put some effort into it.
yep. So so on future bids, can we handle it the same type of way? How would we address that as a city so we don't get into a situation where, say, if you're not here 10 years down the road, we don't want to go down the same path where we have non-competitive bids and we're spending twice as much money?
Generally, we don't have this kind of an issue, right? When we work with Bolton and Mink knows what they're doing, and we've just not had this problem. Even on projects in the past where we didn't take the bids, it wasn't really about the bids, it was about the size of the project. So we passed up on a stormwater project, infrastructure project in 2017, then passed up again in 2018. But of course, we came back in 2019, now with 3 years of projects. Suddenly now bidders are interested. And so sometimes it is just about the size of the project. And I heard that from a few contractors that were interested in this project, but when after they came out to visit, they said, this is just too big. Like, this is way beyond what I thought I was getting into. One of them actually thought he was bidding on the ice arena, only to find out it was the indoor arena and that it was more than double the size. He was surprised. So, yeah. And you know, as far as what we could remove out of the bid documents, you know, I mean, it probably can only have the city attorney say what are we allowed to consider removing by statute and what are we not. And, you know, I want to pay him as well, so.
So if,
I'd like to add as well is that this was a very unique project. We were actually looking to also potentially, but not indefinitely, change the structure of the facility for this project. So there was a lot of scenarios that played out, or that our potential bidders had to play out. That is very unique. I would say that having to go out for multiple bids like this, I haven't seen it in my decade that I've been here. It just, I think, was part of this project, too.
okay. So, and we hired Wold on that one, correct? Because they were the original architects of that building, was that? Or why did we use them instead of Bolton and Mink? I don't remember.
Bolton and Mink doesn't do inside, right? For this, you need an architect.
Okay.
Bolton and Mink doesn't do architecture, so they would always go with somebody else. Like Brunton is who they would normally work with. Past councils have made it clear they would rather not work with Brunton. And Wold was a firm that I've worked with in the past, and so we said, let's give it a shot. You know,
Wold did the liquor store, I think, didn't they?
No.
No.
Was that Whiteside?
That was with
Seth.
Seth.
Was that,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Well, I guess if they didn't do a very good job, I would like to not use them again.
Oh,
That's-
staff is.
Okay,
Staff
sounds
kinda-
good.
Yeah, staff doesn't need instruction on that one.
Okay. Well, I'm happy we got at least one good bid, so,
Yeah.
and it's a good price.
And such a good price that the insurance company said use whichever one you want, so that's saying something there, so. All right, any other questions or comments or discussion on that item?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve the re-roof project from Councilman Heeman and a second from Councilman Lundin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to K5, Mayor and Council office space at City Hall. So as I was kind of thinking about this a little bit more, and talking with Josie a little bit, kind of what I was thinking, I mean, if it's something that you guys think that we would use, was that we've got an intern that'll be leaving at the end of the summer, right? And then we have maybe you want to just explain it. You maybe have a little better feel for what we could do if we.
So the question, Mayor and Council, the question was asked to me if we had an available cubicle And looking at if we were to, we do have an available cubicle. We have our engineering company, Bolton Mink, that uses it just on Tuesday afternoons. We could move him to a different area, but we also do have an admin intern that uses a cubicle, and she will be leaving in about 2 weeks. We just use it for the summertime only. So we could do a rearrangement of who we have in our cubicles if mayor and council was interested in having a cubicle.
And I would assume even next summer, if you had that same arrangement, you could really have that intern that's there in the summertime could use that space where the engineer would normally be.
Correct.
And then Tuesdays, they'd have to be out of there, but I think that probably is a better fit than trying to take that corner office space. And, you know, to me, it's huge to be, if we're gonna be at City Hall, I'd like to be able to be kind of up at the front where we're hearing that interaction that goes on at the counter. You know, when someone comes in and they're paying their utility bill, or they're, got a complaint about something or an issue, I mean, I think it would be useful for us to be around and be present, and, you know, and really not to get into the city business and cause problems as far as, you know, picking on staff about things, but more just to be there, to be a cheerleader, and to be, kind of set time aside for ourselves to kind of be in that space and really, you know, just checking up on things, just being present. And so, you know, from my experience in business, I mean, if you don't ever go to a location and you're not there kind of seeing how the production goes and how things are happening, I mean, you don't really know the entire story. And so, I see a lot of value in us being able to be there, and I think that cubicle services that need, so, anyway, but, wanted to see what your guys' thoughts were on that, and then I think if that's something we're interested in, I think there's some ground rules that Josie and I had talked about that I think would be, maybe something we should discuss a little further if we think we're interested in utilizing that space.
I just want, I just want to add something to you.
Yeah.
This came from the attorney, the city's attorney.
Okay.
Attorney has data practice concerns with the officing at City Hall among staff. So there's data practicing. A lot of that data is not, I don't care, we're elected officials, we're not, it's information that we are not to know about. Okay, elected officials, oh, I can't read. Officials, 1/5 of the vote and residents of the city of Isani, they are unable to direct staff individually on how to do their jobs, and only the city administrator, supervisor have that right. Regular residents of the city would not be allowed. And it's not typical to have mayor or council's office at City Hall with staff. Now, like Ahmed, remember now, this is coming from the attorney. Removing of a full-time employee from their office to give space to an elected official part-time does not send a message, a positive message to the staff's value.
That sounds like an opinion to me on that last one.
Well, your opinion or not, just let me finish. Elected officials are not privy to certain information that is deemed confidential, which can be shared in meetings over the phone or by informal conversation. There are authority concerns having an elected official's office with staff, as staff feel obligated to take direction from an individual elected official, although that is not the role of an individual elected official. Elected officials cannot interrupt staff work days with unplanned meetings or questions and conversations which make staff have added duties to get behind on their normal duties. Sorry, I can't print this off, so I have to read it off my phone. Elected officials are not subject to the personal policies which allows for potential inappropriate conversation, uncomfortable work environment, or disrespectful language or behavior. Mayor's offices are, now this is not just from the previous mayor, but it was also an issue with the mayor prior to that. Mayor's office was removed for previous issues that had been ongoing for years. Staff have left employment from feeling micromanaged and uncomfortable. Now this is just from our attorney. Now this is his words, not mine. I'm not putting any words in anybody's mouth. So I felt, when the previous mayor was elected, I told him he doesn't need to be in here. It's just, it's a disruption to the staff that are trying to do their day-to-day business. You have a lot of confidentialities. Couple mayors ago, that mayor was directing everybody to do what he wanted done, not what should have been done. I'll speak words from a previous employer of the city's. She left because she didn't know who she was gonna be working with the next day or not, because somebody was gonna get fired that day, every time he was in the office. It was very uncomfortable, and that's why she left, and she was a good employee. So I want you to understand this. This isn't my words. I remember this from way back when this discussion was brought upon, before it was even brought up to a council to remove that office. I had this conversation with the city attorney. And these were the concerns at that time.
I have a quick question just about the city attorney now. I was told that we do not have access to him like you just had. I was told it was on my own dime. So how does that work? Because there's quite a few questions I've had for this city attorney.
No, I'll clarify, Councilmember Heeman. You do have access to him. His phone number and contact information are in the binder that I gave you as a new council member.
Right.
It's just the city does pay if you contact him.
Say that again?
The city will be charged if you do contact him, but you have the ability to contact him or even the city engineer contracted.
And that's, part of this was, that attorney called me. I didn't call him. He called me when all this was going down.
So that's direction then coming from staff that was asking him to call you then, so.
No, it was him. that
So was
reached
this
out.
Joe
No, it
was this Joe that you talked to? Because I've talked to Joe before, and he is full of opinions, and not a lot of legal advice.
Well, I guess if you feel you're more legal advice than an attorney is, go for it. Why don't you
Well,
become
there's a
one?
difference
I mean,
between
I'm
legal-
just-
there's a
I'm
difference
just-
between
I'm gonna
legal
tell you right now,
advice.
I'm going on the record, I do not want to see it. I don't care.
That's fair enough. But
And
there's a
I-
difference
and it's
between
just
legal
don't feel you
advice
disrupt
and opinion, is all I'm saying, so. How long was that office, the corner office, how long was that office the mayor's office? From basically the time that this building was built, it was the mayor's office, is that correct or no?
My understanding is that it was the mayor's office from the time it was built. I'd have to look back. I'm not 100%, but I know that it was, when I started in 2013, it was the mayor's office.
It was then, it wasn't originally when it was built, because that actually was the inspector's office, originally, long before. Because when this building was built, this certain person was not mayor at that time. And when he became mayor, that's when he moved in there.
That's possible. I guess I'm not aware prior to 2013.
So anyway, there's precedent there that it's not like it's illegal for there to be city council members in City Hall, so, because it's happened before and it happened for many years prior to this, so.
I understand and respect both sides of that. I think
Yeah.
if we have good guidelines down.
Exactly.
I think as council members, we should know everything that goes on in the city, whether that's in our city or in our city hall. I mean, if we don't know what's going on in City Hall, how can we make decisions that work best for staff? Or, I mean, it's never bad to have other opinions.
I just think it's huge to have, I mean, when you watch people come in here, and I've been here before when we've had, folks from the city, residents coming in, and, they're paying bills, and they have ideas, and they have things that they're talking about. I mean, stuff that we never hear because it never reaches that level of concern or anything, but there's stuff that does go on that, it'd be nice for us to kind of be aware of, and there's ideas and things that you might, gain from just hearing some of those conversations and getting a chance to say hello to residents and pick their brain a little bit about stuff too is I think, a useful thing, so. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think if we're gonna move forward with it, we do need some ground rules though, so that we don't have, those issues come into play, like what you were mentioning there, Steve. So, I would say, that when council members are present, we should be held accountable to the same code of conduct as city staff is. You know what I mean? There's not gonna be, if we're using foul language, if we're speaking about inappropriate topics or something like that, which was, Steve had alluded to some issues there that were in the past, I think that covers some of those type of issues. So that would be kind of the number one point that I would make, that we should probably have that as sort of a ground rule if we were to have an office there. You know, I think we're there with the permission of the city administrator. I think if we're breaking one of those code of conduct, you know, rules that would apply to the rest of the staff, that it's perfectly within the city administrator's prerogative to ask us to leave. And I think that's more than fair. If we can't be responsible and respectful and we're getting in the way, then we shouldn't be there. So, but I don't think that'll be a problem. But I think those are two big things. No keys, you know, in the past, the mayor actually had a key fob, which I can't believe was ever something that I would never want a key. I mean, because then you're always, well, did you come in here in the middle of the night? Well, I don't want to answer that question. You know, not that I would, but I mean, why would you want to even have that risk out there that, I mean, the mayor should never have a key to the city. That's crazy. So, or any of the council members. So I would say that would be another one. You know, we need to understand that we're not allowed to sit in, so this is something that you touched on there, Steve. We can't sit in on confidential meetings or hear about confidential phone calls. I mean, if it's a developer that's coming in and they've got, you know, a plan or an idea, but they're not sure yet, I mean, it's not public information, we're not privy to that. City staff is, because that's the first line of how that you know, chain goes. So, so we need to be aware of that, of course, and not overstep our boundaries there. You know, we're not allowed, like you said, Steve, the data practice concerns me, we're not allowed to rummage through files. I mean, that's not, and if we don't have a key, I mean, obviously, there's not gonna be the time where you're here by yourself and you can get away with that anyway, but, boy, I really can't believe that there used to be that going on. But so I would say that is something that we should put on there. No kids allowed. You know, I think that's something that, you know, I don't know if you guys don't have little kids, but I do, of course, and I know that some previous mayors have. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with kids in general. I sure love mine, but sometimes they're kind of awful and horrible, and they don't really belong in an office type setting. So.
We'll
So
give
that,
them a tour. If they
yeah,
want
I mean, a tour is one thing, you know, but, yeah, so I would say that's one thing. I would say that, we don't need a computer provided for us. I think we've got our tablets and we have a laptop of your own, if you want to bring that in or something like that. I think we should have access to a printer if we wanted to print some documents or something that we wanted to prepare for a council meeting or whatnot. So, I mean, I think that's something that you could get, you know, on your iPad could print, you know, through a air printing or whatever, or if you had a tablet or something like that, or a laptop, I mean, but, you know, and I think if we need to have a private conversation, you know, with a resident, or we need to take a private phone call, I mean, obviously that, you don't get a lot of privacy in that cubicle, but I think there's a meeting room that we could use, and if that's being used by staff, we could always use the chamber as well to do that, so. And we're not, Steve had mentioned, you know, replacing a city staff. Well, we're not replacing city staff because there is a cubicle that's gonna be open. So, when the intern's not there, I mean, an intern isn't city staff anyway. I mean, they are for the time that they're here, but they're not permanently city staff that's always there. We're not taking that person out to make room for ourselves, and we have, you know, the space that's available for the engineer, but, I mean, that can easily be shared because he's here one day a week, so. So I think that addresses all the concerns that you had mentioned there, Steve, that were the lawyer's opinion. You know, I think, to me, I think it's valuable. I'd like to come in, you know, talking with Josie, and maybe Tuesdays would be kind of a good day for me to be here, sort of kind of feeling people out for the meeting and preparing, and I don't know if you guys would have interest in, you know, picking kind of a day of the week that you're able to be here and that kind of thing, but, you know, will it get used, and if it'll get used, you know, what do you think about those ground rules, so.
I think those rules sound good. I know when I used to come to City Hall, I was not a fan of previous mayor at all, before the previous at all, and I still thought it was appropriate that he had an office, because I thought that adds to the community feel. You know, it makes it look like you actually care.
I mean, when I go to the pizza shops, I mean, I'm not there very often, but when I'm there, I mean, it's my job to be the cheerleader, right? I
Right.
mean, not that we're gonna, you know, come in with pom-poms to everybody's door and bother you guys while you're working, but I mean, we're there if you need help, or if you have a question for us, or if there's something we can be of assistance with, and at the very worst, at least we're present, you know, I mean, we're putting in the time and putting in the effort and, you know, earning our keep, so.
Josie, what do you think about those rules? Do you think we need more? I mean, I would be totally okay with you kind of taking the lead on that, if you would.
Yeah, I do think that all those were appropriate. The only other one that I would maybe add in, if appropriate, would be to make an appointment to sit in with staff. So instead of the elected official just going into all the offices kind of at will, it would be to please make an appointment so staff can prioritize their day. Not that it has to be done like a week in advance per se, but like, hey, are you available this afternoon that I can swing in at 2 o'clock? Then staff can make sure that they're available instead of feeling that they are obligated to have the elected official in when they really didn't have time, perhaps. So that
Yeah,
they
and
can-
that's no different than it is now. So I mean, just because
Right.
we're there doesn't mean we get to just pop in whenever we want. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, yeah.
And I like the fact that you gave the city administrator the power to get rid of
Yeah,
that
absolutely,
space
yeah.
if we need, because then if there's a problem, it can be nipped right in the butt right
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
So I'm okay with it. I think it's a
Because,
good
I mean, we
idea.
got to think, I mean, if we're going to do this, I mean, we won't always be the ones sitting here. So, I mean, do I
Right.
think all of us are going to have a problem with those issues? Probably not, but future people might, you know, so, so I think we got to prepare for that, but,
With that said, I think that all of those code of conduct things should be written in a policy. And if you feel like you want to vote on it tonight, I can write it up after the fact, or we could bring it back if you need any more discussion on it, or, you know, to think more. I think that that does sum up all the concerns that I had had.
okay. Well,
Make a
yeah,
motion to approve and write up the code of conduct.
I have one clarification. It is to have a cubicle, though, of one of the front two, correct?
yeah, yep. Okay. All right, so I've got a motion from Councilman Heeman. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Councilman Merrill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-1. Moving on to K6, the text notification discussion.
All right, Mayor and Council, so we had discussed this at the last Committee of the Whole, actually, it was, yes, Committee of the Whole meeting on July 18th. And what I did is I sent last Monday, I sent out a link to a recorded Zoom meeting that I did with Civic Ready, which is the provider, Civic Plus is who does our website, so that's why there was a substantial discount to use that text notification system. Hopefully you had an opportunity to review that video. If not, it really did address all the concerns plus more of what we wanted to see, to be able to text staff and have internal grouping set up, to do emergency notification, to do non-emergency notification. It really did do a lot of different features there. The cost was $2,500. That does give you unlimited, so you don't have to worry about if you go over a certain threshold that you'll have to pay an additional fee. This would be an unbudgeted expense, although I think that it would be applied to many different departments, so it would spread it out, including emergency management, police, water, sewer, streets. So some would go to the general fund, but otherwise it would be spread amongst many different departments.
I think it's a great way to kind of interact with our community side. And looking at all the features that it has and the cost, it's, you know, it has all the features at half the cost of everybody else. So I think it's a great option. And unlimited text, if there's any sort of, if we want to even use some of the expense at the parks, because we could, you know, promote the park events or whatever with the text service that people sign up for. Or
Does it fill our original idea of doing this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the original idea really
water.
came from Steve, and that was when we had that water main break, you know, just to be able to actually get a hold of people and let them know about it, so. So I think with the unlimited text, I mean, if you figure you send one text out and you gotta buy a list or whatever, I mean, you're gonna be $700 to $800, just that, you know, so. So if we send even, you know, a few texts out a year, it's not that bad of a deal, and I think we could use it for, like you said, the parks and the different events that we have going on, and any emergency type situations, or plowing updates, or, I mean, you could think of a lot of ways to use it. And I thought your idea, George, you know, having people sign up and giving them some kind of incentive, like a coupon to use for, you know, Illuminate Isani or something like that, I mean, that you had mentioned, I thought that was a great idea, so, because that's really, you're gonna have to have people buy in and actually choose to receive the text, so.
That's the only way I can see it being really effective. I can see it being a great resource for staff. And, but we need to get people signed up on it. I'd like to see like $1 off on a water bill.
Sure.
Or something like that, just to get as many people as we can signed up with this. And then I can see a good use for it. The $2,500, Can we do it for 1 year with an option to lock in that price for 4 additional years, like a 5-year agreement or something like that? Because I'm worried if we go with them, it's 2,500, it's gonna be 75 the following year or something like that.
That's a great question, Councilmember, and I want to say, and I don't have it written down, some of them had an inflator, like with a lot of our contracts, they'll have like a 5% inflator, and I'd have to look to see if this was, I don't remember, I don't think that we were locked in for like 5 years, and I think that we could do it year to year, but we do go into a contract for a year with them. I can't recall if there was an inflator on that. Was that on the video?
We've been using these for other things that we're doing?
We use this company for our website.
Okay, and has there been an increase percentage-wise every year?
Off the top of my head, I want to say it was maybe 4%.
Every year?
Well, we've only, man, how many years have we been with them? For 3, something like that, so.
So we could look into that. Getting back to the comment, though, of adding like a dollar off or something, utility bill, we can't give gifts. That's not permitted by statute. So we maybe could get creative with a discount for Illuminated Standing, like an event, potentially. I'll have to look into that further.
I mean, even the street dances would be kind of a good way to, just have somebody standing there giving out, you could talk to the
Just-
vendors probably and say, hey, we've got these coupons for $1 off, and, just redeem them at the end, and, maybe even something like that we could do is,
Get
I
creative,
don't know, is that a
something.
gift, I guess? I mean, not off of your city stuff, but, I mean,
You have to look into it.
Yeah,
I do think that if we get the notice out, I mean, if we have different areas of notifications, like a lot of people care about congestion, knowing that there's an event in town that maybe they want to just avoid County Road 5, I think people would sign up. The county does have a high rate for a sign up for theirs, and theirs is just emergency notifications. I think we give, if you're willing, we give it a try for a year, see how it goes. If we don't have the response that we're looking for after we've, kind of pushed it a little bit and gotten the word out, perhaps maybe we only do it for 1 year. But I think with having so many people on Facebook and we push it out on there, and I think we can really get the word out.
And I'm thinking if they're doing our website and they increase our website by that 4%, this probably isn't gonna take a hit, because we're already paying these people for our website stuff. So it might be just something they're gonna throw in at a whatever cost. It's probably not costing them any more to do it. It might just be something that they build into it. You'll never see the increase on it.
When do we plan on starting this program? Is it gonna be budgeted, or are we gonna start the 1st of January and budget it for next year? Or will this be an unbudgeted expense for this year? And will it be prorated? Obviously, I'm thinking it'd be prorated, so half of $2,500 it would start from
I
when
would
we
think it would be
decide to do it
prorated. We'd
to
pay the
following year.
$350 implementation,
Sure.
and then it would be prorated, would be my understanding.
I think we should, if we're gonna go with it, I think we should start it as soon as we can, because it's gotta get built up. It's not gonna happen overnight.
It does take some time to get all, you can set up geofencing, you can do some setup. We wouldn't have necessarily a staff to dedicate to this, so I'll take this on. So it'll take a little bit of time to get it.
Notifications already, Josie. I mean, you're out there,
Hey,
like
it's
I said.
mobile. I already asked if I can do it all completely from my phone, and they said yes, so we're good.
I mean, it's just like when that water main broke. You're over there, you're there when you were camping with your family. You came there early in the morning. You were there for however long you needed to be. You were sending out messages. It's gonna probably make your life easier.
It very well could. And I will also have the assistance of Chief Myers for emergency management texting and alerts too, so he'll be happy to help.
Would it,
And that's his happy face, so it's good.
would it make sense to prorate this and ask them if we can pay from now to the 1st of the year and then pay for all of next year, so that we can keep this in a budget each year so it doesn't come up in the middle of the year? Would it be any benefit to do that?
If we were going to start it the first of the year, we would probably start that, but I would say most companies, and them included, when we worked with our website, they're very willing to work for us. If we got it started and they invoiced us on January 1, so we had it for the next billing cycle, I think we'd be probably pretty ready to go. I think that they'd be willing to do that. I mean, there's a number of weeks in the implementation part of it. It's very possible that we can start to get going, so it's like live January 1, and then they bill us for 2024, if you want it in that billing cycle.
Would they prorate us this price from now till January 1st, like half?
I would
Less
think
than
so.
half the price?
I didn't ask that specific question, but I would assume so. Usually they do that.
Does it matter, Mike? I mean, does it make
So,
any
a couple of
difference
things
to
is,
you?
one, whenever we have a start date, it's either gonna be 12 months from that start date, or they're gonna prorate to the end of the year, and every company will do it different. Some only want contracts ending on 12/31, others don't really care. And then as far as which year things fall into, if the contract is 1/1 to 12/31, we know exactly what year it is, and regardless of the date that I cut the check, it still gets coded there, right? I'm still coding it into that budget year by journal entry at that point if need be. And if it is, say, July 1 to like June 30th, right? I'm still, at the year end, I'm still going to prorate some portion of that. Either I'm going to say I have a portion that's payable, or I've prepaid, and I'm going to record a prepaid portion. So it will still fall into the correct budget year no matter how we do it.
I motion we go with it.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Merrill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. And that was starting right away.
Yeah, I think we
Okay.
gotta get started on
Yeah.
it. They gotta get it built into it. It's not like it's gonna happen overnight.
Okay. Moving on to case 7, chapter 144, drug paraphernalia discussion. And I know we did talk about this a little bit, kind of leading up to our THC ordinance, if we needed to change anything. And I think the conversation kind of was along the lines of that, you know, we're trumped by state law anyway. And then I know, George, you were the one that kind of asked to bring this up again. You know, but I guess what's the purpose of leaving it in place if it's trumped by state law anyway, right? Was kind of the reason that you wanted to bring it up, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I say strike the ordinance. It makes no sense.
I'm just
And
gonna
bes-
bring up something, just quickly. I was in, I'm not gonna say which store, I was in a local tobacco store just the other day, and a guy, older gentleman, I don't know who he was, he said to the person behind the counter, "Where's your hash pipes?" And I bit my lip, because he's already determining what he's gonna use that for.
It's legal. Hash is legal. You can ask for a hash pipe. That's why I follow state statute. I don't agree with it, but I don't see why we need to have extra ordinances on the law above and beyond state statute. Doesn't make any sense.
Council,
I've talked to Travis about
Just
this.
interrupt quickly, starting of the first of this month, drug paraphernalia is no longer illegal in Minnesota under state law.
Right.
So the question then to council is, do you want it to make it illegal under ordinance? That's the question. So it is a valid point to bring up with that law change, because prior to the first of this month, it was illegal to have, say, a crack pipe with residue. Now, right now, you can have a crack pipe with residue in your pocket, and it's not illegal. So that's the law change. So
Well,
there is no state law.
So even if it's an illegal drug, it's still, the
Correct.
paraphernalia is now legal?
Correct.
That
That's-
just
That
changed.
just changed on the first.
So that means we should keep this because the state government is letting us down.
And then
Point blank.
by statute, it does allow local regulations under 152-205, which does allow for local regulations of that still. So that's the debate I think to have, is because of the law change now. I think if the law was the way it was, do we really need it? Now it's, you know, it's up to the council to decide if we want to have our own local regulation on paraphernalia, since there is no state law on it.
I don't want any crack pipes in town, so I think we should leave it just because just like I said in the
I mean, I
last
guess,
meeting.
is
with-
there a difference? I mean, I'm kind of naive on the whole crack thing, so, I mean, maybe you can educate me, but.
Well, I mean,
the,
the premise is if you had a glass pipe that had never been used, it
Right.
wasn't necessarily paraphernalia, because you could use it as a
Art.
straw, right?
Right.
For your Coca-Cola in the afternoon. Once there was residue in it, or you had intended to use it, you say, I'm gonna use that to smoke meth or whatever illegal substance, then that would make it illegal under the
But I mean,
paraphernalia
is
law.
the same pipe that you could smoke weed out of is also the same pipe you could use to smoke all these other?
Correct, but,
All right.
yeah, so I mean, the only difference is if you, yeah, I don't know how we have it written in there, but it was if the substance was illegal and there was residue on that substance on the paraphernalia, would made it illegal.
But now, even if the substance is illegal and there's residue on there. it's
Correct,
not-
even like your meth, crack, all that's, you can have illegal now. So that's a big change. You can have needles that are, you know, have residue on needles, that's a
Yeah.
new change too.
And that's another reason why we shouldn't let the state determine what businesses come into town for a weed store. That's, you can't trust the state politicians for anything.
I have to agree with you 100%, Luke, and
Yeah.
on your concept of what you're saying, but I have to disagree on this respect. The police department, I know, they can do it with their own discretion, but they can also stomp on somebody's individual rights to be able to smoke marijuana legally by coming up and saying, let me see your pipe, because I want to see if there's any residue in it. I mean, it opens up a door for harassment by police, I mean, I like to have the police do their job, and I like them to keep the crackheads out of town, but there's a little bit of a door there that unless they're doing something wrong and they're obviously smoking crack or they're obviously doing an illegal drug, I don't think our police department should be approaching them and infringing on their right to do something illegal.
But, you know,
By your ordinance
well,
right
here-
now,
go
the
ahead.
ordinance, the way it says, in our ordinance, it talks about that it has to be a controlled substance in violation of Minnesota's chapter 152. So therefore, if somebody had a marijuana pipe right now, it's not in violation of our ordinance.
Even under this.
Under our ordinance right
Yeah,
now.
right.
It's already not illegal because now, under 152, marijuana is no longer illegal. So it has to be something that's illegal under 152 as far as a substance.
I was going by the comment you said about crack pipes. Well, they all look so much alike.
But the flip side of that is, they cannot smoke marijuana in public. They can only smoke it on their private property. Now, if I
That's
went
coming
to-
up later this evening. That
Huh?
just, that subject is coming up.
Yeah, well, I'm just pointing point. If I go to Luke's house and I light up, I don't smoke marijuana, so don't. Yeah, but if I went to Luke's house and I said, I lit up a bowl of marijuana, I'm breaking the law. Because not on my property and I'm on his.
That's not true.
No, yeah.
Yes,
it's-
it is.
It's not, it's
Sorry,
private
Steve.
property, though, Steve.
You
is-
weren't
is- yeah.
factual last meeting, you're not being factual now either.
Oh, okay. Because that's the way it was explained to me by my relatives that are officers.
So Travis, I have a quick question for you. How many drug paraphernalia charges do we usually get a year? Is that something, I mean, I see it as, a lot of these people, they're so shisty that they know not to have the actual substance with them, but they will carry the pipe, and that can lead, if you're arresting one bad guy simply for a paraphernalia, that's gonna get that bad person off the streets. So do you know how many a year that we get for paraphernalia?
No, but I would, percentage-wise, that 90 to 100% of all narcotics cases either start with a paraphernalia
Yep, exactly.
issue or are discovered in conjunction with. So if we're gonna have a substance one, there is, as far as paraphernalia, I'm not sure, you probably aren't familiar with all the things people use to do illicit drugs, I hope. So as far as a little piece of that, you know, you have your heroin and your different stuff, your crack and your meth, those are all used in a different conveyance than your marijuana or your flower. I mean, those are two different devices, if you want to call that, because you're not going to see the same device being used for that.
Right.
So, I mean, this, I think, basically, the real thing is that, George, you're probably concerned that, okay, if we have a pot shop come to town, that they should be able to sell a pipe to go with it, right? I mean, which, right now, even, I think at the CBD joint, they're selling a pipe because it's not illegal under this, because it's not against Minnesota statute, right? So technically, this is only applying to an illegal substance, paraphernalia, that would have had to have been used already, and that would give you the authority still to pursue some kind of a charge regarding that when you're pulling people over or that kind of thing, right? So
Yeah, it would have to be illegal right now under 152.
Right, so anything that could be used to smoke weed does not fall under this anymore? No. Yeah, okay.
I still disagree. I think this statute needs to be wiped out completely and rewrote. Travis, you could come up with what you think you need to be able to do your job efficiently, and we rewrite it because there's too much cross language in it. I can see where we can run into trouble or residents could get their rights stomped on, so I think we just need to rewrite the whole thing. That's my opinion. And we can put in those things that you're concerned with and then look at it and vote on it. But
Councilmember, if I
80%
may.
of this ordinance is all related to marijuana, one way or the other.
I mean, actually, even that section I, so I mean, like
Yes.
140.
It does state
Is that
it.
what you were just gonna say?
Yes. Yep.
It does actually say marijuana there, so there we do need to make some changes, don't we?
I think if the direction is for us to look into it and just to take out any reference, if there's a very clear, like, for example, the word marijuana in here, is to just review this in light of what action was taken by the state for August 1st. And if there are some changes that staff recommends, we draft it, we post it for 10 days and bring it back to council, and you can choose then at that time to adopt a revision.
Yeah, I think that, I'm okay
Unless
with-
somebody wants to
I
repeal it in
think
its
you are
entirety.
right, George. I mean, there is some language in there that does need to be cleaned up. I mean, yeah.
Almost every paragraph is related to marijuana use, and that's what I'm reading.
But there's no way, no how that we can go follow the state's guidelines for drug paraphernalia. Now, that's kind of a joke.
Yeah, no, I agree with you
That's
too, yeah.
insane.
I think we can clean it up, get the
Yeah.
marijuana part of it so that it's clarified that that's not what we're talking about. And, I mean, it does say that that's not what we're talking about because it references Minnesota law, but then it also goes on to say more about marijuana, so yeah, we should clean it up and then, but I think the rest of it we should leave in place.
What rest of it?
Well, basically, I mean, I don't know, George, I mean, you're kind of talking about,
I mean, I can see like,
I mean, you don't want to take away the ability for Travis's guys to, if it's a drug other than marijuana, for them to start to kind of do some investigating and have some reasons to do some searching and some, right? I mean, you need that ability
Yeah,
to,
I mean, it's that point as well as, I mean, do you want to make it illegal for somebody to be walking down Main Street carrying their meth pipe with them? That's your choice.
I think just to clarify also is had the state not made that change also, what Chief Myers is referring to with the other illegal substances residue, then I would agree with you that it doesn't have a place in it because the state would have already had, a way for the police department to enforce actions of a state law. But because they did what they did and got rid of that, it would take that ability away from the police officers if we removed it in its entirety.
That's asking for trouble. That would be bad. Like letter E, hypodermic syringes. There ain't no way you telling me that you're gonna use that for weed. So that's syringes are, I mean, see, the thing is, they'd have to have proof that there's an illegal substance on the pipe. That's not gonna change. So if they suspect it's meth, I pretty much guarantee that the PD can tell the difference between a meth pipe and weed. It's gonna be pretty easy for them to tell. I mean, yeah. I think we should clean it up too. but-
yeah, I think,
it definitely needs cleaning up.
Yeah,
Just so
there's-
it's just, it needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah.
yeah.
What a botch job from the state.
And then you would have to define marijuana as not a drug.
That's already defined within the state statute, so,
Okay, we would have to define it within our ordinance too.
well, we have it within cannabinoids that it will have to be amended as more actions take place for the licenses and stuff, and, I mean, it's already allowed in the statute that Chief Myers listed that it is permitted, the use of that marijuana.
Okay, so we want to take this back to maybe the next council meeting, or you need more time than that, or?
Because of this day falling on a Wednesday,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not sure
right.
if I'll be able to hit the 10-day notice after
Okay.
drafting, so I would say, well, I'll draft it, We'll get it posted, but it would likely be the first meeting in September 5th, that this will be on for possible action.
Okay.
So for right now, Travis can still act on illegal contraband.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, and that's the problem with this ordinance. So Travis leaves here tonight, he drives down the road, and there's somebody in their garage smoking a bong with a marijuana cigarette in the other one with a roach clip, both illegal, and his wife is planting 4 marijuana plants, which is illegal on this ordinance. He
Well-
can stop- I'm just saying.
It's not, I mean, the ordinance is conflicting, actually, because it's not illegal if you look at this line here where it says Minnesota statute, chapter 152. It's not illegal. But then the ordinance goes on to talk about marijuana in other ways, like it is illegal still. That's what we need to clean up. So it doesn't necessarily say that it's legal, like what you're trying to say there, because it's not according to that, and it's citing that
Correct.
statute,
And the
so.
statute will trump, so.
Right.
We aren't, I mean, the state law does say that we have to make any changes to ordinance, has to be posted for 10 days out to the public before it can be before the board for action. So they don't allow for us to change it today, even if we wanted to. We do have to go through that process of posting it, even though, yes, it's conflicting with state statute. We have to do that.
Okay.
And as far as our enforcement under this ordinance, because it is not a controlled substance under that 152 chapter, we have no authority to enforce that, and we'll go with that.
Okay.
That's how we're enforcing it, because it's not listed as a controlled substance, so marijuana doesn't count in the paraphernalia ordinance.
Okay,
Okay.
so we'll rewrite this?
Yeah, I think they're gonna clean it up so that it doesn't reference marijuana like it still is included in that chapter, because it's not included in that chapter anymore, so,
And all the things related to it,
right,
okay?
all right. Moving on to K8, and this is kind of what Josie was referencing here, chapter 295, tobacco and related delivery products discussion.
So I included this chapter within the packet for you to see, but what it doesn't do is for the discussion that I'd like to have, is it doesn't cover marijuana. So it's vague enough that maybe it could be interpreted, but because like the signs that we have at our parks and at our facilities that say no tobacco use, it doesn't cover marijuana. So the recommendation that I have is for consideration is to include it for at least at a minimum, public grounds and facilities. That would cover like our tobacco, what our tobacco does currently as well, so you can't be in the parks with tobacco. You wouldn't be able to be hanging out in the park with marijuana. But what I'm also seeing many other cities do, as well as the county, I believe, has this up for discussion there too. Theirs is a little bit more lengthy than this one. But this is to prohibit cannabis and hemp use in public places. So this is something that's permitted by statute that we can adopt an ordinance such as this. We just have to make sure that we define public place in a manner that they have already defined it as. So that is a printout copy that I have before you. And so I'm looking for direction. If this is something that you're interested in adopting into ordinance, I will then look into which chapter we will include it. My options are to include it in the chapter 298, which is our cannabinoid chapter, or potentially rewrite 295 and not label it or title it as tobacco, but maybe something else. But if you are in agreement with this kind of language and action, then I will make the steps forward to see where it would be placed best.
No, I gotta say, when my wife and I were talking the other day, and I saw that Duluth had done this, where you couldn't smoke in a park in Duluth, and I thought to myself, well, boy, that's kind of a downer there. I mean, if you're, all those people living in Duluth, and they're in apartment buildings, and they wanna go out and hang out at the city park and enjoy the scenery and the view, and, you know, where are they supposed to enjoy that stuff? So, I don't know what you think about that, but I thought it was kinda, I don't know.
I think the city should stay with state statute. I don't see,
Does the state
Benefit.
statute address that at all? No?
It gives us authority to address it. So just like we have no smoking tobacco in our parks, we have the ability to do this if we so choose. And I believe that the reason why we have the authority is because the public places, such as parks, I think that's a little bit different than saying like, you can't do it at Coburn's, because that's a public establishment, but it's private grounds. You could look at it as those two separate things, or bind it together. But like, for example, the park and city facility grounds, taxpayers, everyone's paid for that. And if you have people who don't want to use it, should they be affected if they go to the park and the person next to them is smoking, no matter what you're smoking?
Well, could we say in there that you can't use it within a certain distance of, other people? I mean, I don't know how in the weeds you want to get here with us, but,
I think that would be difficult maybe to enforce, but I'll turn that over to Travis.
I mean, it's not going to get enforced anyway, is the reality.
I mean, we do enforce a little bit of the tobacco one. The only time I can think of that is during special events.
Sure,
When we get a
yeah.
lot of complaints, especially the biggest complaint we get for the tobacco one is at the BMX facility.
Okay,
Because they have the doors open and people step into the parking lot, which is city park property. Yeah, and then that type of stuff. So that's
Yeah.
the biggest complaint that I get is at the events for the tobacco smoking. I'm not talking about this, but the tobacco smoking is that. And then we've had other complaints at the playground area, just from people there with their kids and somebody's smoking and doesn't want that around their kids. So those are the only two complaints I can think of as far as smoking. Whether wrote a ticket on it, no, but it gives us the authority to tell them you can't smoke in the park.
Yeah,
Go
right.
Find someplace else.
I don't think people should be smoking in the parks personally, because there's kids around, and I don't know, I get what you're saying, Jimmy, but I just think it's kind of like.
I'm still mad about the, not letting people smoke indoors. I mean, well, Mike's not here anymore, but I mean, when I was a kid growing up, I mean, and I get what people are saying, but I mean, you used to go to the bowling alley and stuff, and, I mean, you left and you just stunk, I mean, that was part of the fun.
Yeah, but it's bad on your lungs too.
Yeah, what do you guys think?
I think kind of like a lot of ordinances and stuff, it's kind of one of those things you want it if you have to have it. Like if there was a problem person that is getting complained on, if we don't have an ordinance about it, we can't do nothing about it. But it doesn't necessarily mean we have to enforce it all the time, which I know you're always saying, well, why is it an ordinance if we're not enforcing it? But I think that's for the problem.
Well,
for
I just like the
issues.
ordinance to match what people are doing in reality, and the reality is people are gonna go to the park and light up from time to time, but typically, they're not probably gonna be overt about it, but,
So I have a question. What if there's, say by Matson Park, there's a retirement, old folks home across the street? What if there's people there that are always smoking it, and there's someone that lives across the street that has PTSD or something from weed smoke? I mean, then you have a complaint. Are you gonna be able to do anything about it if you don't have an ordinance? No. So it's kind of one of those things where you kind of need it if you have to have it,
can we take public comment and stuff on this, or?
That's up to you.
Okay.
Yep.
Come on up.
Elizabeth Eastep. My address is 7750 Highway 95 Northeast, North Branch. I own Northridge Winery. I've already had customers come and say, oh, it's going to be so great to be able to sit on your patio and light up. And I'm like, no, you won't. We are a family-oriented facility. We're trying to stay family-oriented. I guess my suggestion as a community member and a county resident is to have designated smoking areas, because I have family members in recovery. I have, I had 5 grandkids with me all day today, running all over my winery, pulling them in the wagon. If there would have been someone out.
Well, I talked to you on the phone. It did sound
I
like you were
know.
busy,
I had
yeah.
to shut the four-wheeler off to talk to you. I don't want to have that risk of running my grandkids through a cloud of somebody's marijuana smoke. So if I ever do allow it at the winery, I would have a designated smoking area, or some little yurt out in the vineyard. That's the designated spot. That's probably a 10-year plan in my mind, because I want to see how all this plays out, and to respect people who are in recovery. I think that we need to not have it something you're going to walk down the street and smell, or go for a walk on any city park land and have to risk what might have been your
serenity, now you've just been triggered in your addiction. So to know those places that you're gonna avoid, just like we have people who say, I can't come to your winery because I'm triggered. I'm an alcoholic, meet me in town for coffee, great. I think we need to respect that part of our community that has worked hard to recover from addiction.
I agree. I think that's a good point too, being it's, overdose awareness month too, and there's a lot of people that struggle with all sorts of drugs, and they always say marijuana is one of the biggest gateway drugs, so why have it around children if, if they smell it in public, they're gonna smell their friends smoke it, and then they're gonna.
Oh, and
think
I'm
it's
not,
okay.
I'm not saying, I mean,
Right.
remember I already had mentioned that, can we do it at a certain distance away from other people, you know what I
Right,
mean?
yep.
So no, I think your point about maybe you have certain areas where you could allow it, but that gets to be kind of messy too, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that's a good idea though, or a good concept. It's something to consider maybe.
So the two things that we can decide between, well, actually, there's three options. One is do nothing. One is to exclude it from public facilities and grounds. That'd be like the parks, City Hall. And then the third option be to prohibit it from all public places. So if we wanted to say that it was not allowed at areas that are actually owned by the private, so it would affect businesses, if they would allow it or not, we could control that, or we would leave that up to the private business. So there's a few different degrees of what we could take action on.
I think the middle option would be the best. Just exclude it on our public property, the Isani property. It would be kind of ridiculous if we said that none of the businesses here could have their own input on what they
Oh,
want in
yeah,
their business.
yeah.
But I think that's a medium ground on that, and I don't know, maybe years down the road we could change our mind, but I don't know. I personally, when I was a kid, I liked that they got rid of the smoking in restaurants, and I just think if you're not, you should be more responsible than that to smoke around people, but.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not something that I would want my kids around for sure. But I'm always trying to lean on more of the side of individual liberty as much as possible, so. George, what do you think?
I gave my opinion, I say we stick to state statute.
Which is,
I
they
don't
don't, they
wanna
just
make-
don't touch it at all?
Yeah.
I mean, I think,
No, I don't wanna make Travis's job any harder than it already is.
I mean, we could always do it if it becomes a problem too.
Right.
You know, I mean, would be the other, what about, Steve, what do you think?
I don't think we should be doing it on city property, period.
I agree.
But I probably don't have my facts right, so. So, if you're not gonna allow somebody to smoke a cigarette or cigar in public, in the parks,
Well, see, that's another point there. I mean, if you sit and smoke a cigar in the park, I mean,
Or
how nice is it to walk around the park and puff on a stogie and,
absolutely,
yeah,
but
right, so.
it's the rule, so I stick to it. I don't smoke in my own home,
Yeah, right.
because my wife doesn't like it, so I go outside. I don't smoke in her vehicle. I'll smoke in mine, but I won't smoke in hers. That's hers, it's not mine. It's plain and simple.
I think when you look at people going to the park just as their own haven to walk around is one thing, but also thinking of it, if we have the amphitheater dance, the city-sponsored event, and if you don't have regulations in there, you will have people when you have over 1,000 people in a very small area trying to enjoy the music, and it's gonna be right by them. I mean, you said that we could do something with like a space, or like a distance, but I think when you look at having events, it gets really hard to control it if you don't do an all or none kind of thing. And we do give people a place. I've worked in Anoka County, City Maple Grove, they do the same thing. They say, go to the right of way, go stand at the curb and smoke. You could still, or go to your car, still on grounds, but a lot of times that's kind of been the option. It's not that they have to completely leave, but.
Yeah, I've noticed at most events nowadays, people who smoke walk away from the event or at least step back from the main crowd. I see very few people lighting up in the middle of the crowd.
That's only because hasn't been legal until now. It's been illegal, so
well,
people don't want
Well,
to.
this
Cigarettes,
is
for
just
instance.
tobacco we're talking.
Oh, tobacco.
But I
oh,
think
yeah.
we should just follow that same guideline, plain and simple. You're not asking for problems, you're actually making his job easier. You don't know if he's smoking, if a guy's smoking a cigarette or if he's smoking a doobie. You know the difference in the smell, but
Councilmember Heeman, they do it, because I've been the one to ask people to put it out.
And
So-
marijuana
And they'll
is,
be right in the center of a crowd.
marijuana is a mood-altering substance too, and there's, I mean, not to go too far with it, but I've smoked laced weed, and I have a reaction when I get contact with marijuana, and it makes me scared, and that's not something that we should be forcing on other people, because there is a, you know, a mood-altering substance, so that's something that can play an effect on people. Tobacco, it's mood-altering, but it's not in the same type of effect. So I think that's opened up a can of worms, especially if people are doing it like at the street dance or the amphitheater, or, I mean, that's,
I'll solve the problem. I'm gonna motion that we just follow the tobacco guidelines in city parks and properties.
yeah, and just include the marijuana, basically,
Marijuana
yep.
portion of
Or
it.
smoking, or, yeah.
Even
Well,
vaping.
Smoking is gonna cover both, obviously.
Yeah, smoke-
Anything
yeah.
you smoke, right.
Yeah, but I mean, most people don't think when you vape, it's a problem.
Right.
And there's some people say, yeah, I can feel it, I can taste it, I can feel it in me. Whatever, you know, so I mean, that's kind of the same issue. So I just think we follow the same policy as we're following with tobacco use in our parks. That's what I motion.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion to
This-
basically, go ahead.
I think that this would be motioning for direction for staff to draft an ordinance for
Yes.
what
Yes.
you're suggesting, because I don't have that drafted yet,
Okay, yep.
for just the public facilities and grounds.
Okay, so we're just motioning basically for you guys to put something together, and then
Then we can.
we'll
vote
come
on
back to it and vote on it. Okay.
Quick question, we already have a smoking ordinance. So,
It doesn't cover marijuana, though. It's too vague.
well,
It's
there's
tobacco.
no word about marijuana in this one that I've seen. It's smoking. So smoking is any substance. So that's why I thought we redid this to include you had marijuana in mind when you redid this.
You're talking about the cannabinoid chapter, 298? Or which chapter? Because the one that I'm referencing now that doesn't allow for tobacco or tobacco-type products, including vaping, is 295. And that is too vague to cover marijuana because it references tobacco, tobacco vape, tobacco products, not just smoking products.
Okay, I interpreted it as tobacco or marijuana because it just says Article 1 smoking. So I would assume that it would be either or.
I did ask the attorney to review it, and while it might, he said it was too vague, so his recommendation was to make it clear
It is very
that it wasn't
vague.
just tobacco products.
And that's his legal opinion?
That was his legal opinion.
I mean, if you read the smoking on what we have here, it's inhaling or exhaling smoke from any lighted or heated cigar, cigarette, pipe, or any other lighted or heated tobacco or plant product. So, I mean, that's, right. So,
That's gonna cover it.
Yeah, in the smoking definition, it gives a list of items, but then it says from any nicotine or lobelia delivery devices. So it really is specific to nicotine, not marijuana.
I think we should just revise it a little bit. That's what we motioned, so.
All right, any other discussion at all? I have a motion then to have staff draft an ordinance that would mirror the tobacco smoking rules for the city grounds and parks and that type of thing. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Aye. And I'm only voting to oppose it because I think we should just wait until it becomes a problem, would be my opinion. But I don't think it'll be an issue. It's probably happening now anyway, and we don't even realize it's happening. So, so the motion would be a 2-2 then?
Yep, so the motion does not carry, so this can be brought back as as a discussion at another future meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to have it on the next meeting. Then if Dan's here, we can all vote again.
Okay. Moving to K9, the Planning Commission member discussion.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. This is regarding our planning commission member Alexander Collins, who was reinstated earlier this year as a planning commission member after losing his position for not attending meetings and unexcused absences. And this has happened again, so the next steps are to send him a letter, just acknowledging that he is no longer part of the planning commission, but can reapply if, and make a case to council if he so chooses.
Okay.
If you're gonna sign up to be involved with the city, you should be involved. There's,
Need to show up.
yeah, and there's no excuse to not even let anybody know that you're not gonna show. It's an insult to the people that put in the work, so.
Yeah, I mean, I like Alexander. I
So
think
do I.
he's a decent man, and I think his intention is to be helpful and that kind of thing, but, and I appreciate that, you know, the desire to be helpful from him, but he just hasn't been able to show up, you know, so I think he's just probably too busy and has a lot going on, so, I mean, I appreciate his willingness to help, but yeah, I think we've got to find somebody that can make it to the meetings.
So I'll make a motion to send the letter and open it up for someone else from the public to come on the planning commission.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion to go out for the now open position on the planning commission. Motion from Councilman Merrill and a second from Councilman Heeman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. K10, the request for proposals for brush.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, this is the action that I believe that we should, or the information I believe that we should look at taking possible action. This is to look at receiving proposals or quotes from businesses that would be interested in either, I wrote it as an either/or, brush chipping, or chipping any brush that we may have at the compost site, or a full removal. I did write it as an option for, they could chip it and leave it on site, because then we would add it to our compost pile, or they could chip it, remove it, or if they could just remove it in its entirety. I tried to put in as many logistics as I could, letting them know that will allow for them to provide advertisement to us, that we will post up on our fence at the compost site with a 4x6 sign through the months of September through November, that we would put their information on our website and our Facebook, that they are providing this service to us, so hopefully we wouldn't have a huge cost for them to remove it. Obviously, the goal of this RFP is to get proposals in that would be less expensive for us to use this type of service versus hauling it out to Rivard, which is currently what we do with our brush. I think it is a little bit tricky that I don't have an amount to put in there because we never know how much we're going to have, and we haven't accepted brush for a full year yet. But I think that this gets the ball rolling. I put in here the deadline would be to place their proposals in by August 25th. Partially, that's out a little bit farther than I'd like, but because we need to post a notice in the newspaper, they wouldn't get that notice out until the 10th of August, so it gives them about 2 weeks to get their proposal in. And then we would take action if we did get qualified proposers in at the September 5th meeting.
So I have a question on this for 3H. You said the sign can be placed at the compost site. Why is that only 3 months? Is there a reason? I mean, I would rather have it year-round, because if it was my business, people are gonna be bringing brush there year-round, so it'd be helpful to have an advertising sign there year-round.
I'm going to be honest, I just thought, I just put it in there. It's up for
Okay.
discussion if you
Okay.
want it to change.
Yep. I would like to see that year-round, because that gives the most value to someone that's gonna be giving us a service, hopefully for no cost. So, I mean, any eyes they get on stuff, they're gonna put a higher value on, so I think a year-round would be best there, and then people can see it too from the road even, so that's good advertising any business would be down for, and it doesn't cost us anything. Otherwise, I think it's a great idea to hopefully see if we can get this great city service for no cost to us. That would be awesome. And advertising for a tree trimming service, so. And I did reach out to one tree trimmer, and they would be interested. So, and that's the only one I've reached out to, but I'm pretty sure most of them around here would be, because a lot of people are sick of trimming their trees. So if you have an advertising sign direct at the source, you're very likely to get tree trimming jobs, so.
I did put the term on this for 2 years so we could evaluate it if it was working good. If it was working good, we can do the next one for a longer term.
Do you think it would be helpful to do it for 1 year instead? Because then people might not feel as committed. You know, they could try it and see if it works for them. And I'm gonna guess that a lot of them will just renew, but I think a 1 year makes it seem less daunting or less of a risk to these tree trimming services.
The only reason why I didn't do 1 year is because it's actually, will seem like 1 year, because it's a 12-month cycle. They'll get this year and next year. And the cost to put it in the paper, for staff to bring it to council for the RFP, draft a contract, that time involved, actually, I thought 2 years would count for this year, 2023 and 2024. It's really like 1 full year, 2 cycles.
Okay. So for this, if we find one person and they agree to, say if we did 1 year hypothetically, if they agreed to it, couldn't we just renew with them, or would we have to go out for RFP again?
There are only certain services that we can renew, cleaning service, attorney. I don't know if this will qualify.
I mean, it's kind of a cleaning service.
I'd have to look.
Okay.
There's only a very specific ones we can do that with, and I'd have to double check on that.
And that's state statute?
Yeah.
What was your question? I'm sorry, I was looking at this here, so.
So, say if we hypothetically do for 1 year, she was saying that we'd have to do an RFP and go through all the process again for all of this. Why couldn't we just renew it? Say if the first year goes good and that company wants to continue, why can't they just renew for the next year and the next year? That was the question, but it might be a gray area is what,
Okay.
yeah. I just think it's less daunting to see a 1 year commitment from, like if it was my business, I'd say, oh, 1 year, I'll try it, and if it's.
Well, yeah, when you're trying to get a price that you're
yeah.
trying to get, yeah. I think on 3G there, I would maybe kind of clarify that the city will provide advertisement for the accepted proposer's business on the city website, and, because that's kind of what you're implying there, right? I think that, I would clarify that maybe a little bit so that they kind of understand that we're looking to sort of trade advertisement and this sign for, you know, a discount on the services of some kind, so.
So just business, so provide business.
Something like that,
advertising, maybe?
yeah.
I probably would also include in the contract that it would be approved by the city. I thought I had that in there, but maybe I did not. Just because that's a good idea whenever you're having a sign put on your public property that you've approved, that they don't have something that
Yeah,
could be offensive,
sure.
so that.
And I agree with
language-
Luke too, that I mean, doing it for a year for the sign, 'cause just 3 months is a lot of, you know, just to even go tear the sign down is a
Right.
pain, you know, so. So yeah, we should do the whole year for that. I think the rest of it looks okay though, and
Was there, again, any reason that the brush may be chipped, removed throughout the months of September through November? So that's part E. Is there any reason that we could do that maybe year-round, kind of like Public Works does? They stop by when they have time, like a lot of tree trimming services, if they get done early for the day and have a couple hours during the summer. I mean, is that because? Could we? Or could we do it during the open hours of the compost site because there's already a staff member there? Okay, I see. Sure. Maybe, I don't know, could we make it the option, like, could we write, I don't know, something saying unless appointment made or unless otherwise discussed? Yeah. Yeah, on part E, because if that's something that they're like, well, that's my busy time, I don't want to do it then.
Sure.
You know, then it gives a little bit of leeway. I know if I had a crew of guys and I was done early in the summer, a couple hours, and I wanted to put them to work versus just paying them to go home, I would go do it, you know? Just a good use of what you're paying for as a business owner.
Should the term be 1 year or 2?
I personally think we should do 1 year.
If 1 year would just be for this, through this fall cycle then.
Or maybe the calendar year 2024? I don't know.
So we typically do, I mean, we can do it through the end of 2024. That's in essence a 2-year contract, but I can write out specifically to be through the 2024 year.
Yeah.
That sounds good to me.
And then, so that's not including this year, or it is including this?
That would be including
That would
this
be
year.
including this year, okay,
This year and next year.
okay. I see what you're saying, it basically would be 2 years at that point. I think the 2 years makes it seem more of a commitment, though, than through next calendar year, you know, I don't know. I just want this to go well, so hopefully we get some good bids that are free.
The other thing
or-
that I thought of putting in there, I didn't yet, but if we do discuss that we want to have some brush available to do a bonfire, that probably should be placed in there, that the city reserves the right to keep some brush.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're gonna potentially say, well, the contract says I get all the brush.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, we probably should do that then.
Yep.
Yeah, because that's next year, we're hoping to try to do something with that, so.
I make a motion to approve with those changes.
I'll second.
I have a motion to approve the request for proposals from Councilman Heeman and a second from Councilman Merrill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to K11, the parking surfaces discussion, so.
Good evening again. Staff researched other cities. Oh. For right now, okay. I guess I have a question to ask first. Is there any chance we could recess for 5 minutes that we could, or for the time it takes for EDA? Since
Yeah.
we have people waiting for that meeting and.
You bet, yeah. Can we get a motion to recess the city council meeting?
Make a motion to recess.
And we'll
Second.
pick it up after the EDA meeting. I have a motion from Councilman Merrill and a second from Councilman Heaven. All in favor, boy, let's try that again. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. We'll go to recess and we will pick up our EDA meeting, so.